Hi, you may be watching this video as a thesis writer or a paper writer at Andover Newton Theological School. Everyone is welcome, but before we begin, I have some advice that's specific to those people who are writing their thesis. You're going to have to use a manual for writers of research papers, theses, and dissertations. That manual is less daunting than the Chicago Manual of Style, and I encourage you to use it. Both of the manuals are available in the library, in print, and the Chicago Manual of Style is available online. The Hilltop shop at the Andover Newton Theological School Library sells copies of a manual for writers of research papers, theses, and dissertations for the subsidized price of $11. If you are writing a DMin or an MATR project, it's in your best interest to buy yourself a copy. You will absolutely need the 8th edition. The manual is often referred to as Turabian in honor of its original author. You may also use citation management software like Zotero, but beware that all citation software programs do make mistakes. It's ultimately your responsibility to double-check your footnotes and your bibliography entries that are generated by software programs, even the ATLA database, to ensure that you are following the Chicago style. You will always have to clean up your footnotes and bibliography entries. And you will have to refer to the manuals for examples of proper formatting. Students in past years have often waited to the very end of their process to concern themselves with the proper formatting of their footnotes and bibliographies. This is a terrible idea and has caused unnecessary stress for them and for me. Please don't wait until after you've passed your defense to learn Chicago style. You will regret it, and so will I. I can accept your thesis into the library collection only after it's compliant with Chicago style, and you can receive your diploma from Andover Newton only after I've accepted your thesis into the library. Because the students who have been on this journey before you have struggled with this requirement, I am always looking for new ways to make this process easier for you. I found this video that you are about to watch online. It was produced by Brad Ost, who is a theological librarian at the Robert W. Woodruff Library in Atlanta. Brad has generously allowed me to edit his video for our purposes here, and I am very grateful to him. There are a few things that we do here at Andover Newton that differ from the instructions that you are about to receive from Brad. Please note that for your DMin or your MATR thesis, you will have to use footnotes, not endnotes. And because the library will bind your project, your left margin should be 1.5 inches and the other 3 margins will be 1 inch. For shortened notes, you will be required to use author title notes. Please note that when Brad is talking about capitalization, he is discussing the capitalization of titles and subtitles, and he will give examples to capitalize titles and subtitles. Remember to pay particular attention to chapters 16 and 17 in a manual for writers of research papers, theses, and dissertations, and use the appendix. Ignore chapters 18 and 19.
All right. This is the manual for 8th edition. This is some of the material that we're going to cover. General formatting, not a lot of that. I'm going to let you read that, and I'm going to let you look at the example page, and you'll see how the formatting is to occur. Capitalization and abbreviations, source citations, long and short notes, and then some special formatting that we do. So these are the general format requirements. I'm not going to read it all because you know in a presentation somebody just reads off a PowerPoint. It is boring as all get out. So I'm just going to let you read this. It makes very much common sense, but really if you have any issues with it or any concerns, I'm not saying that it's understandable right when you start on it, so you can call me or email me and say you were having some difficulty. General formatting requirements continued, but we're going to start right in on capitalization. Now, Turabian has 2 styles. It's got parenthetical, which you often have seen. Somebody's writing some material and they want to cite something, and within the paper they put the citation information within a parentheses. That's not the style you're going to use. You're going to use the style called the bibliographic style, which means that you're either going to use an endnote or a footnote and a bibliography. So for that style, for the bibliography style, it uses headline style capitalization. Now you've seen all sorts, you've seen other citation styles. Often they have something called sentence style, where the first word is capitalized, everything after that is lowercase. That's not the case for Turabian. So you capitalize the first letter of almost every word. A rule of thumb is you look at all the big words and they all ought to be capitalized. Well, it's not exactly like that. There are some exceptions we're going to look at and some examples. But by and large, almost everything is capitalized, except for articles, a, and, or the. Coordinating conjunctions, and, but, or, not, yet. Prepositions. Now this is a tough one, because I'll ask you, do you know what a preposition is? I can't even remember what a preposition is meant to do. So I will tell you about a place you can go, and that's Wikipedia. If you go to Wikipedia and type in English prepositions, it has a page which lists every single English preposition. So if you're unsure if a word is a preposition, you can go there. Second part of a hyphenated compound, unless it's normally a proper noun. I'm going to show you an example. And proper nouns which are normally in lowercase, like Ludwig von Beethoven, a name, his name, that's normally in lowercase. So let's show you some examples. All right. The economic effects of the Civil War in the mid-Atlantic states. Now normally, right, this is supposed to be lowercase because it comes after a hyphen. But Atlantic is normally a proper noun, so it stays capitalized. To have and to hold, look at that. Article right there, and, conjunction right there, and, not capitalized. To have and to hold, colon, a 21st century view of marriage. Now there are several things in here to question. First, there's an article, but it's capitalized. Well, the first word, always, the first word after a colon, no matter what it is, no matter what the exception, will always be capitalized, that first word. And then we look at 21st century. Here are some hyphens, but these, unlike Atlantic, are not capitalized. That's because these normally are not proper nouns. So they stay lowercase. 4 readings of the Gospel according to Matthew. Wow, that's a big word, and normally I would have said that's supposed to be capitalized. But this is an example of a preposition here. So that is not, for whatever reason, you'd think that's a big enough word, but no, prepositions are not. It's one of those crazy things. You go, why did they make that rule? I don't know. Ludwig von Beethoven. Here we just had that example on the previous page. Von isn't normally capitalized, so you're not going to capitalize it in Turabian. Global warming. What we are doing about it today. There's another one. Preposition. You run into it again. And then E-flat concerto. Lowercase because flat is not a proper noun. Now there are more examples of this under 22.1.1 on page 309, and most of these slides will have a page number that you can coordinate with the book itself to find more examples. Abbreviations of states. Now here's the issue, here's the problem for you. You might be coming from a different tradition, a different citation tradition. Or if you go up to ATLA, certainly, the ATLA database, certainly, they do not use the Turabian style for their citation page. So you're going to see all sorts of different ways of putting this material up. For Illinois, you'll see ILL. For Minnesota, MINN. Well, that is not the way of Turabian. And Turabian is simply 2 letters, it's the postal code. 2 letters, both capitalized, no periods. So for every state, Colorado, CO, both capitalized, no period. Straight down the line for every single one of these, okay? Now, you may think, okay, well, I put a period in or I change it a little. No, you've got to do it exactly as Turabian says to do it. And here's the reason why. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know why it's different from all the others. It's just crazy. But teachers care about these things. And they're going to look at that page. And you're going to write just an absolutely wonderful paper. An A paper, a 99% paper. And then you're going to come to the end where all your citations are. And it's going to look like a homicide occurred on those last few pages because they'll have red all over the place for missing a period or missing a comma or capitalizing wrong, because these are things that are important to academics so that other people can come behind you and know where it is that you got this material and see that it's in a standard format. So number one, be concerned about periods. Be concerned about capitalization. Number two, be consistent. If you're making a mistake and you don't know it, at least do it the same way every time. All right? So when you see the N, the bold N on these examples, that will be the note. The bold B will be how the bibliography is constructed. So let's go to our first example here. Online journal. Probably the most frequent item that you're going to run across will be the online journal. So here we have the note. Look at, and this is the frustrating part because you have no idea. I don't know why Kate Turabian changed things, why it has to be different from bibliography and note. Just go ahead and swallow that frustration because there's nothing you can do, but it is different. So look at this. The formatting itself, here for the note, it's called first line indentation. So it's pushed in. For the bibliography, it's called hanging indentation because the first line hangs over all the other lines, okay? So there's a difference. If you look at the first one, so it's the number, whatever number it appears in your paper. So Lawrence A. Shapiro, the name is in the proper order, the order that we normally see it in, comma, multiple realizations. That is the title of the article itself, then a comma. Let's see how it's different here. For the bibliography, it's backwards. First, the last name comes first, then a comma, and then the first name and or middle initial. The reason for that? The bibliography is arranged alphabetically according to the last name of the author. And you'll see that in formatting as you read through. The note is arranged according to where it ends up in the paper, what number it is. So you have the last name here. Now look at this. Here's a middle initial with a period after it. And you go, normally, yeah, a middle initial has a period. But even if the middle initial isn't there, even if it was just Lawrence, it would still have a period. Because for the bibliography, you're going to see a lot more periods than you do in the note, where you're going to see a lot more commas. So you go over here and you look here for the bibliography, multiple realizations, period. Up here, multiple realizations, comma. You look at that and you go, you got to be kidding me. That's really important. It's not important to me, but it's important to you, and it's important to your professor. It's important to people that follow behind you. So if you're really looking for that good material, good grade, this is what you have to follow. So comma here. Then, the name of the journal in italics. So when you look at this, everything matters, okay? This is in italics for a purpose. They want it that way. Here's the volume number, comma. Here's the issue number. Now look, it's the same here. Journal of Philosophy, that's in italics. Volume number, comma. Number, the issue number 12. Now let me say a couple of things here. This volume number, you'll see it in all sorts of different things, and you probably have already. VOL, period, volume, written out, V, period. No, 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 and again, no. Do it exactly like this. Don't add anything, don't subtract anything. Do it exactly as Turabian shows you. And then a comma, and then this is the issue, but it's always NO, period, or NOS if you've got like 12-13. But you're not going to put number, you're not going to put ISS, you're just going to have it exactly like this. And let me say, I stress this every time, and in some of my foundations class I give homework, and still I will get something different here. And here's the reason, the most common reason I do, is because people are cutting and pasting the citation as they find it out of the ATLA database. And that is not in Turabian, and they forget to go back in and change things. So be really focused. The big thing about doing citation material is it's not rocket science, and you can tell that, but it does require focus. So always have a sharp mind. Finish your paper, hold off on this till the next day. When you're fresh again, start all over again. So then the date of the publication, this ends in a colon, this ends in a colon, 642, comma, 634, 5-54, period. Why the difference? Up here for the note, all they want to know is what page you found that quote on. So it's just one page. Or if it starts at the bottom of another page and goes to the top of the other, you can have two there. But not normally. Usually it's just one page. Down here, for the online journal, we want the entire extent of the journal. What page does it start on? What page does it end on? For that article, I'm sorry, not for the whole journal. For that particular article, what page does it start on? What page does it end on? Then a period. Look at there, comma, period. Then, what day did you access it on? Accessed June 27, comma, 2006, comma. Down here, because there's a period here, A, capitalized, right? You look at me and some of you are going, boy, Brad, come on. I can see that, that's easy. But I'm telling you, this is the kind of thing you have to focus on that people miss, okay? 2006. Now, I will tell you something that was different from the old edition. They always wanted the web address. And you would get these huge web addresses, very unwieldy, and it was hard to put it in there. Now they say this: if there is no suitably short and direct URL, you may substitute the name of the database for the URL. So unless the web address is, this big, it's not suitable and it's not short, you can go ahead and put the database, which is, for you most often will be ATLA. But it might be the Religion and Philosophy collection. It might be ProQuest Religion. It might be Old Testament Abstract. But that is now valid to put that here at the end. Then it ends here with a period, ends here with a period. All right? That's the online journal. If we go on, this is the second most common entry that you're going to make. A book, citing a book by a single author. Once again, the note, the bibliography, the note, first line indentation, the bibliography, hanging indentation, right? The note has Marcia Snulligan-Haney, who is one of your professors, comma, and then in italics, the name of the book itself, Evangelism Among. Oh, look at that word. It's not capitalized there. Preposition, remember? African-American Presbyterians making plain the sacred journey. Now remember, we are headline style capitalization. Then in parentheses, look at that, no grammatical character there, no comma, no period, nothing. Then in parentheses, you're going to put the publishing information. Lanham, comma, Maryland, University Press of America, 2007, comma, and then the page number that you got the quote from. That all sounds good, it looks like the online journal, right? But remember here, where it's produced. If the publisher is located in Los Angeles or New York or Chicago, something place really famous, you don't have to put the state. But if it's someplace nobody knows, then you need to put the state. And just as a safety measure, you can always put the state. Even if it's Chicago, you can put IL for Illinois. So you don't have to worry about that. For the bibliography, once again, the name is backwards. Remember, because you're going alphabetically according to the last name of the author. Then a period. Once again, here in italics is the name of the book itself. But look here. This ends with a period. Up here, there was nothing. But there was a parenthesis. Here, no parentheses, but you're putting in this very same information, and down here, a period. Now remember, in the online journal, they wanted the entire extent of that particular article, the pages from the page it started to the page it ended. Look here for a book. No page numbers here on the bibliography. Okay, it's just a little tweak, but be careful about this. And then it shows what page on Turabian that you can find more examples of this. As we move on, I'm just going to do this for you because you encounter this a lot in academic work, that you have multiple authors there. Let me say first, it's very important that you get the order that they establish correctly, because there are all sorts of things that go into the order of the authors. It could be seniority, it could be who did the most work on it, but it is very important to keep it in the order that you find it in. So, these are just both the notes. The next page, the next slide is going to go over what they look like in the bibliography. So if you have 3 or less authors, if you have 2 authors or 3, this is what you do. So you have Joyce Appleby, comma, Lynn Hunt, comma, and Margaret Jacob. If you have 2 names, it would be Joyce Appleby, comma, and Margaret Jacob, or whatever. And telling the truth about history, everything else is the same, okay? But here, with 2 or 3, you're going to have this construction. If you have more than 3 authors, if you have 4 or 5, 6, whatever, all you're going to do is put the name of the first author, then et al., which I believe is Latin for the others, or more, or something. But it's referring to the other authors, all the other authors, period, because this is alia, I think. So I can't remember what I'm trying to say, but you need a period there. And then a comma, and then the name, everything else is the same. So remember, if you've got 4, 5, 6, however many authors, more than 3, you're going to have et al., period. All right, let's go here. This is the bibliography portion of that. So for 3 or less, 3 authors or 2 authors, it's going to look like this. Last name, because you're doing it alphabetically according to the last name of the author, Appleby, comma, Joyce, comma, next name. Now look, this is important. Look at this. Linda Hunt. They've got it in the correct order because they no longer have to go alphabetically in here. Just this first name. Linda Hunt, comma, Anne Margaret Jacob. And then everything else is the same. Down here for the bibliography, they need to know every single author. If you've got 30 authors, you've got to list them all. So Hall, comma, Jacqueline Dowd, comma, James Lelotis, comma, Robert Karstad, comma, Mary Murphy, etc., etc., etc. And then finally, before the last one, Anne. And then everything else is the same. So these 2 slides show you how to do the different versions of multiple authors. If you look here, I've also done essay. An essay is a chapter in a book. So you can look at this for yourself. A lecture, how to cite a lecture. Let me go over this briefly. In citing a lecture, and in fact, I'm going to have to go in and fix this slide because remember, this right here should be indented, okay? So you're seeing this here. This is a mistake. This should be first line indentation, okay? Don't forget that. This is correct down here. You're going to want to know the name of your lecturer, so it would be your teacher's name, and then comma, and then the lecture title itself. Now, if your professor hasn't provided a title, and they normally don't for just a lecture, you're going to have to make up a name for that particular lecture. Now, you're already going to have lecture over here, where it occurred, and on what date, so you may want for the title to have it be something descriptive. John dealing with the empire. Maybe that was the lecture for the day. So you're going to make up this part. You're going to decide for yourself unless they've given you a title. And then everything else is the same as we've seen in construction for an online journal or a book. Okay? Now remember, you look at this. This is not italicized here. All right. Citing a biblical reference. This is something that happens here. They have a list in Turabian with the traditional abbreviations, or you can choose these shorter abbreviations. And if you go to these pages, this section 24:6, it will show you what they are. But make sure you do the same, you're consistent all the way through. You do it the same all the way through. Now here is the interesting thing. The first time you use a Bible version, you're citing your scripture, you have to put the entire name of the version that you're using. Now, if you go ahead and use that version for the rest of your paper, then all you need to put from then on is just the scripture. If you change versions, you're going to have to then, the first time you use a new version, let's say it's number 10, and you're quoting something out of Samuel, 1 Samuel, then you'll have to put the name, the entire name of that version, the Message or something, okay? And then if you skip around between versions, every time you use a version and you had another version before it, you have to write out the entire name, just so they know which one you're using at that time. So if you use this one, New American Standard, and the second one was the Message, you would have to write the Message. If the third one was back to the New American Standard, you'd still have to write out New American Standard because you had something in between it. But if after that you use the New American Standard the rest of the way, you wouldn't have to fill out that entire name because they'd know it was the last one mentioned. All right? How to cite a journal article in print, how to do an ebook, how to do a website, how to cite a blog. So there are lots of things you can do. Now, long and short notes. We're going to get to IBID, and we're going to get to the Latin. But I first want to show you what Turabian wants you to do to shorten your notes. So it is that they don't want you really to use Latin anymore. They prefer that you didn't. So they have something called long and short notes. So the first time you come to a citation, you would cite the entire thing. This is in your notes, okay, your endnote page. You would cite the entire material. After that, there are two ways to shorten note. You can do author-only notes or author title notes with up to 4 significant words from the title. So the author-only notes, if you were doing Philip Ball and your next note was also Philip Ball, it would simply be Ball, comma, and the page number. Or you could do Ball and up to 4 words from the title, and so here they've used Bright Earth, just 2 of them. They've used 2, but you can use up to 4, comma, 2004. Whichever version you use, author only or author title notes, make sure you use that standard from then on. But here's the thing, most often I would use author title notes. And the reason why? He may have written more than one book, and you may be quoting from both of those books, and you want to distinguish between the two. Also, there may be another author that you're using whose last name is Ball. And once again, you would want to distinguish between the two. So most often, I use author title notes for my short notes. And that only happens after the first time you've used the entire citation. Using IBID. The only Latin phrase that Turabian lets you use is still IBID, which is IBID shortened for IBIDEM, which means the same place. So here's how you would use IBID. For 31, you'd put the entire, this is a short note right here, DO, missing person, comma, 33. If you use that again on the same page here, if the last one is on the same page as the previous one, well, we'll get to that. DO, missing person, 33. As long as you're quoting from DO, you can use IBID, remember always the period, then a comma, then the page number. If the next one is on the same page, you can just use IBID, period. But it's also, you got to make sure that if you're changing here, if you're changing to something else, you can't use IBID for this one here, for DO. You've got to do DO over again. All right? You can only use IBID if it comes right after. Everything you use after that is referring to DO, missing person. And the next time you use something different, then you have to start all over. All right. Formatting, I'm going to let you read all this because we've got the example page, plus this is just reading here. Formatting the footnote, the bibliography page, citing sources, when to cite. Now this is just important because because it's very important that you cite your material. And if you're found to have used material and not cited it, it's called plagiarism. And ITC cares very much about the honor of their institution and what comes from their institution, wants to make sure that everybody is using their own material. And if they're not using the material, that they're citing who it's coming from. Most often the mistake comes from omission rather than commission. You've made a mistake rather than going up on the internet and hoping you get away with it. So we understand that. ITC understands that, but it's still a serious matter. Even if it's a mistake, it's still a serious matter. So when do you cite? You know to cite when you're actually quoting somebody. That's easy. But when you're paraphrasing somebody, you're taking their thoughts, their ideas, and putting into your own language, when do you cite that? Well, when it's an idea that's associated normally with one person. So when you're talking about Soren Kierkegaard, when you talk about fear and trembling, you know that you're talking about Soren Kierkegaard. So you want to make sure if you're referring to fear and trembling that you're going to go ahead and cite it because it's well known that it comes from him. If it's an idea that's very new in the field, so about 15 years ago when I went to seminary, the justification in Paul debate was going on. That was very new. And if I had cited material about that debate, I'd have to cite that too. If I was paraphrasing, I'd have to cite that too because it was new. But here's the rule of thumb. If you aren't sure, cite. You will never get into trouble if you've cited something that you didn't need to. But if you don't cite something that you should have cited, then you could run into a problem. All right? putting quotes into text. So you're going to, if often you run into this issue of block quotations. I'm going to take you over here to the board and just show you what I'm talking about. Here is this is a page, okay? And say you're writing on the page, you're typing on the page, and this is you're typing 1, 2, and then you start a quote. And it takes up 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines. As long as it stays within that boundary, not 4 sentences, but 4 lines, as long as it stays 4 lines or less, it stays in the whole body of the text. If your quote for one instance goes over it, remember it doesn't have to be 4 sentences, just more than 4 lines. If it's more than 4 lines and laps over here, then you've got to stop and make it a block quotation. So I'm going to see if I can erase this quote right here. And what that means is that you're going to indent it. So you would be writing, so this is what you were writing, and then you come to your quote, and because when you tried it the first time it went over 4 lines, you know you have to do a block quotation. So you do 1 tab in, you're indenting it on this side, not on this side, it's going to go all the way to the right-hand side, but you go 1 in, and you do your quote. No quotation marks, no quotation marks. And make sure it all lines up, 1 tab in, and you keep doing it until you get to the end. And then you go ahead and put your number here, whatever number it is, and then you do 2 returns. You get your whole space here, and you start again with your own writing. And remember, you go all the way to the end here. You don't indent on this side either. So the rule is, if for normal writing it was going to go over 4 lines, then you make it a block quotation. No quotation marks, you put the number here, then you put a full return here to get this gap, because this is going to be single spaced here. This is not double spaced, this is single spaced, okay? All right, so that's what you do for block quotations. Putting quotes in your text, just remember that it's always at the end. So if you're doing a paraphrase, you want to come to the end of the idea and then go ahead and put in your number, whatever number it is that you are on your citation. And finally, special formats. This is just some of the other material that's available in the book itself. All right.
There is a link to the PowerPoint presentation that Brad used in his video on the Andover Newton Library Chicago Manual of Style webpage. On the page, there are also many other links provided for you to help you to learn Chicago style. I hope this video and other learning tools provided to you will encourage you to become acquainted with Chicago style as you are conducting your research and writing your DMin or your MATR project. I am available to help you figure out how to cite strange or unusual resources. I'm available to help you learn how to use the manual, but I'm not available to proofread all of your notes and all of your bibliography entries. I give you feedback on your bibliography once, and I give you feedback on your footnotes once. But it's up to you to apply that feedback to all of your work. For example, if I tell you that you need a period at the end of an entry, it's your responsibility to go back and put periods on each entry, not my responsibility to mark up every single entry. The writing tutors, Betty Blanchard and Helen Snively, are available for additional tutoring. Please seek their help if you do not understand the feedback that I give you. In the end, the responsibility for complying with Chicago style is yours. Please take full advantage of all the resources on the library's webpage and buy yourself a copy of the 8th edition of Turabian. My email address is nlois@ants.edu and my phone number is 617-831-2416. Please feel free to email me or call me to clear up any confusion you might have about the school's requirements and expectations of you concerning Chicago style. And please remember to get my feedback on your bibliography and on your footnotes before you schedule your defense. Happy writing and happy editing.